Dear students, good morning. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 23rd March 2018. The first article, Terms of Separation. It is about Lingayats and their demand to be recognized as a separate religion. So before going into this topic, let us ask few questions to ourselves. Buddhism, it has got its dominant presence in East Asia. Why is it not present strongly in India? And second, Buddhism had its origins in the failures of Hinduism, and most of the tenets of Buddhism, these are against to the animal sacrifice, violence that is existing in Hinduism. So, why did it disappear? That is the question. And second, today there are many forms of mobilization of the people. So, especially the economic benefits and social benefits, if they are necessary, the mobilization point is cast more than the religion. And third, across the world, there is a majoritarian politics which is growing. So in this context, obviously, if Lingayats are recognized, they will become minority. So in this context, why they are demanding for a separate religious status? So remember, Dharma. So the Dharma of Lingayats, they believe, is very different from Hindus. So, they do not believe in animal sacrifices. They do not follow the rituals of Hinduism. And then, there is no caste distinction among the people. And Basava teachings clearly states that there shall not be any distinction between the people. So, in this context, the caste demarcation and added to that, various ritual practices which Hinduism is prescribing is killing their very dharma and identity. That is what is the agitation. And second, these are Shaivites. There is another group that is called Veera Shaivites. So both of them are considered by and large as Hindus. So Lingayats also like to differentiate themselves from Veera Shaivites. And Veera Shaivites and their ritual practices are close to Hinduism. And most important thing here, a religion spreads through education. So Lingayats organize various mutts. These mutts run the educational institutions. Today, most of these mutts, educational institutions, they lack the rigor which they had in the past. So there is a fear of death of their thought, dharma or religion among the Lingayats. Now, I think that is the primary reason why they want themselves to be recognized as a separate religion. So Mysore state first categorized them as Hindus. And immediately, even in the recent past, they made many representations to the union government, but nothing has come to fruition. Today, if we see, Lingayats have a strong political presence and also economic presence. There might be some economic benefits comes to minority educational institution if it is recognized as a separate religion. You know that Article 30 provides some economic benefits if their property is taken away. So right to property still exists for minority educational institutions. And their political presence is already significant. Recognizing them as separate religion will not create any political space for them. So I see this question much as a fear of identity loss rather than as a mobilization to have economic and social benefits. This is what I can say it as. Meeting India's electrical needs. India's energy mix is changing. What does this mean? Today, India is going to have more renewable energy sources rather than non-renewable energy sources. Or else, the per share of the renewables is increasing over non-renewables. So the major problem of the renewables is cost, and the second aspect is predictability. Now, if you take solar energy, wind energy, these are not predictable. They are determined by the natural forces of the nature. So in this context, bringing them to the grid parity is very difficult. How this grid parity is understood is explained in this article. Simply remember that. Let's take sun. Only we get the energy in the day. And when it is clouded, energy production decreases. So obviously, we cannot totally get away ourselves from the central grid. So whenever the production decreases, the grid shall be ready to meet the demand. So that's why they maintain generators, etc., immediately to catch up to the demand. Or they have to go for load shedding. So, to change this unpredictability or to manage this unpredictability, we can use the solar energy for last mile connectivity. Or we can use solar energy in agricultural pumps, etc., where electricity is necessary only during the daytime. But to provide for 24 into 7, that is round the clock supply, we cannot get away from thermal, hydro, nuclear energies. That's what this article emphasizes on. That is Cambridge Analytica, Facebook, and you. So what are the points you need to remember? So today, big data is the new currency. And most of the citizens' personal data is available with the multinational companies. So these MNCs are converting this data into a commerce, and they are becoming the richest companies in the world. So today, our personal information is their money. So here we need to understand a point that is called data colonialism. What is this data colonialism? Yes, the data being generated by us, it is used by companies located in the West, and they are generating wealth out of it. And it is not benefiting either the data generator or the country which he belongs to. So that's why raw material is us, and they are selling the finished goods. This is what we call it as data colonialism. And the next aspect is privacy. So in a connected world, privacy is a myth. So lack of autonomy and dignity on one's own information is a violation of the privacy of an individual. So the Cambridge Analytica, without the permission of the people, it has took their information and used them to manipulate their mind and voting behavior. This is where comes data protection laws. So what the data protection law has to deal with, how many opportunities a citizen has to have to engage with the online platform. If he wants to opt out, are there any choices? And third, can he determine the terms of his engagement by himself, or he has to just passively accept the terms of engagement which are given by the company? So these three things have to be clearly understood. And the data protection laws have to be clearly mentioned, have to be clearly talk about how the data can be shared across various platforms. Here, Facebook probably it has shared the information of the people to Cambridge Analytica. So that's why, did we authorize the Facebook to do that? That is the bigger question over here. And then curbing misuse. So there are many protective laws for the marginalized sections. Either it is women, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, there are many laws in their protection. So whenever there is a protective law, so there are two ways. What the group which you want to protect, the law sympathizes with them, and then we have to identify the other group that can perpetuate the violence. So in this case, if scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, they will always be on the side of the victim. But the other castes, they will be on to the side of perpetrator of the violence. So in these circumstances, when a social system is changing, when the assertiveness of Dalits is growing, probably these laws can come handy to them to gain their identity. So in the process, there is a chance they can be misused. So the protective laws, there is a good chance they can be misused. And there are also allegations on these protective laws that they are being used to harass public servants. This is what is exact thing the Supreme Court has stated. So as of now, any case booked under SC/ST Prevention of Atrocities Act do not get bail. It's a non-bailable offence. You cannot also get anticipatory bail. So the Supreme Court stated not giving an anticipatory bail is not absolute. So the Section 8 is not absolute, that is one thing. Second, there are two other protections it gave. If you are a public servant, then the appointed authority has to give the permission to arrest you. And if you're a private individual, the decision need to be approved by an officer of Senior Superintendent of Police, SSP. So the Supreme Court has created certain safeguards so that the law cannot be misused. Now here see another thing. In India, it is a settled thing that if a law is prone for misuse, it cannot be invalidated. We need to correct the misuse rather than invalidating the law. So here, SCST Prevention of Atrocities Act is not going anywhere. The safeguards are being created against the misuse. It's not only about SCST Prevention of Atrocities. What about Domestic Violence Act? So everywhere there is a chance for misuse. Is the economy back on track? Now today we are seeing IIP, Index of Industrial Production, yes, positive sign. Purchase Managers Index, positive sign. The growth, quarterly growth in growth reports, they are growing. So is that mean, can we conclude the GST and demonetization, their effect has weaned on the economy and economy is back on the path of growth? So here, remember, this change in these indices, is it reflecting on the ground? So how it has to reflect on the ground? There has to be credit growth. If economic growth is happening, obviously there will be a credit growth, investment flow. And the second thing is employment rise has to be there. There has to be greater demand in the economy. If this greater demand has to come, it has to come from agriculture and then small scale industry. So then, do we have a greater demand? So there is no correlation between these two. It means what is the indication for us? So these indices are being prepared based on the formal sector. But these are based on most of the credit growth, employment, demand. These are created based on informal sector. So the data which we are calculating is a formal sector and it is unable to catch the trends in the informal sector. So only after 2 years we get the clear understanding of this picture. So that is the essence of this article. And there are three major dangers. One is banking sector is still crumbling under pressure of NPS. And the second thing is the investment, private sector investment is not growing. Third, there is a good chance of the flight of capital from India. The reason is the United States Fed, it is increasing the interest rates, then obviously it is expected to move. As the interest rates increased, flight of capital happens, dollars move out, then obviously rupee gets weakened. When rupee gets weakened, import costs increases. Unless we balance this with rising exports, then obviously the current account deficit is going to worsen. So these are the dangers which we need to address. So whatever the growth picture which we are seeing, it is not foolproof, or we cannot completely say that economy is back on track. Protecting our data. So here clearly a data protection law has to exist in every country. In India, you know that Justice Sri Krishna Committee was appointed on drafting a model law, and it is yet to come up with this law. And then UIDAI chief defends safety of Aadhaar data before Supreme Court. Now, Hindu everyday is doing, I think, a trick. It creates this one and Facebook simultaneously in the same front page. It wants to convey that no data is secure, irrespective of what UIDAI is stating. So what the UIDAI chief stated, Aadhaar is foolproof. It is difficult for a supercomputer to crack the Aadhaar. And second, with regard to denial of access or authentication failures, what he stated is, there can be no system which is 100% foolproof from authentication failures. There will be, because of network issues or something, authentication failures may occur. That's why they have alternatives. So this is what he has explained to the Supreme Court. Next is, Trump orders curbs on Chinese goods and investments. Now, the romance between China and USA is about to end. Xi Jinping and Trump, they are on warpath now. So if you see national security strategy, in that itself clearly US has mentioned that China is their growing threat. China, Russia. And on one side, China and Russia are coming close. Russia is giving its technology to China. And second, China as the largest trade partner with most of the countries in the world. Here, the trade, intellectual property rights, China's most of the technology is based on reverse engineering because of the restrictions and market. So the American companies are bound to give their relax their intellectual property concerns in China. because they do not want to lose their market out there. And second, the investments which are flowing into China, into US from China, these are of strategic concern. What Trump says is these are meant to raise their military production rather than or to provide for advantage to military rather than to gain profits. So that's why restrictions are going to be imposed on Chinese goods and investments. And there is going to be a direct face to face competition between these two countries. Now, China is a manufacturer hub. It is mostly in low end manufacturing. By 2025, China wants to be into high end manufacturing. So, it wants to take the advantage of Industrial Revolution 4. So, it is fast developing into robotics, high technology, or technology intensive sectors. So, in this scenario, the US economy is more dependent on high cost technologies. There will be a direct competition between them. That's how we will see it as. And then missile tracking system has come to Pakistan from China, right? You know, Pak and China all weather friends. So obviously, so this is what we need to understand. Tomorrow India will give a resentment on that. That's going to be a normal aspect. And the next, in the last page, I am giving you the notes. lax.in/CivilsPrep, it will be available. I think they will post it tomorrow. And this week, I have given you the notes and this lecture in the evening. Because of my class schedules, I am revamping and preparing for this program about to come, that is current affairs program, 1 year revision of current affairs program. So that's why I was unable to give my prime time to the current affairs this week. So from Monday, we are starting that current affairs program. So that will be, registrations will be there at lax.in/testprep. So in this, we are going to cover economic survey and then current affairs of 1 year, India yearbook, geography through maps. All this will be covered in lax.in/testprep. You can visit over there. And we are charging fees for it. I'm not ashamed to tell that. So we are charging 2,000 rupees for that. Thank you very much and all the best.